Hey team, Yasin here, and in this training, we're going to be going over the business intelligence, exactly what business intelligence is and why it's absolutely critical in order for you to actually run your business with proper intelligence. And so in this training specifically, we are going to be going over 5 specific topics. We're going to talk about what is business intelligence, how to use business intelligence, some of the troubleshooting and tips for business intelligence, using business intelligence as a daily habit, as well as how your business intelligence is going to evolve depending on the stage of business that you are in. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it. So the very first question that you might be asking is, what exactly is business intelligence, like this sharp gentleman right here? And so what business intelligence is basically, you can kind of imagine, and not just imagine because it's a fact, is that the reason why the military calls its data collection department the intelligence, right? They call it about military intelligence whenever you hear about it in the movies, or if some of you guys are former soldiers or Marines or have been in the Army, you'll know that the intelligence department is basically the operations department that is responsible for data collection, right? Where all of the intelligence and spies and all that kind of stuff, kind of like imagine James Bond, right? The reason why that's the case is because data is literally the smarts. It's literally the only way that you'll know anything in life is by collecting actual data, okay? And so business at the end of the day is truly a scientific game of data and decisions. And without data, you are literally flying blind and you are literally just guessing in not only your business, but in life as a whole. Now, what do I mean by the fact that you're going to be basically going blind, right? Because the truth is that at the end of the day, the better decisions you make, the better business and life that you will have. What does that mean? Because if you think about it, that the quality of the decisions that you have, right? So you go home after a long day of work and you can either eat like broccoli, or you can eat healthy food, or you can eat chips and pizza and burgers, right? And so the quality of decisions, the better decisions that you make, the better quality of life that you are going to have, right? Whenever you are in high school and you're offered drugs, the fact that if you end up taking those drugs and you end up getting addicted to drugs, right, the quality of the decisions ends up being the quality of life that you have. And so we know so many people in our lives, whether that be friends and family, because of the poor decisions that they make, they have a poor quality of life. Now, the question you might be asking is, how does the brain actually make decisions? The truth is that the brain makes decisions utilizing data, whether or not you know it or not. Now, you might be like, yo, Yasin, like, this is a business training program. Like, why are you going super deep into this? Is because I want to provide you guys the overarching strategy. Because if I just give you a business intelligence Google sheet and say, hey, fill this out every single day, you won't really understand exactly what the importance of data and the importance of intelligence is. And so this is really going to be the fuel that allows you to understand why it's so important for you to actually collect data. And so the brain makes decisions based on data, and that's whether you know it or not. And this could literally be as simple as looking at the reviews before you buy a product on Amazon. And most people think that they're afraid of data, or they think that it's like super numbers and like math and that kind of stuff. But the truth is that you're utilizing data whether or not you know it or not. Like literally how you feel at any given moment. That is also a piece of data that you're utilizing in order to make a decision, okay? And so you've already been using your data your entire life to make decisions. All we're doing right now is we're literally just labeling it. And so basically you can take this quality of decisions, quality of life equation, and it basically becomes data is what is utilized in order to make decisions. And then the decisions is what basically is the outcome of your life as well as your business. And so the truth is that the good quality data is the input for good quality decisions. And good quality decisions are the inputs for a good quality of life. And so you can actually go ahead and flip this around. If you have bad quality data, then you have bad quality decisions, and therefore you have the bad quality of life, right? And so it's literally as simple as that. That literally is, I kid you not, the secret to life and business. You're welcome. And so the biggest thing I want you to walk away from in terms of the strategy section of this training right here is that data is what you should utilize over feelings. The truth is that facts over feelings is the bottom line, and that data does not have feelings and facts do not have feelings. And if you are not actually collecting data regularly, both in your business as well as in your life as a whole, you are basically making decisions based on poor quality data. You're going to make poor decisions, and therefore you're going to have a bad quality of business as well as a bad quality of life, okay? And so that is exactly the overarching framework of what the intelligence is and what data is as a whole. And that's kind of the gist of what business intelligence is that we're going to actually be documenting what are our numbers on a daily basis, so that way you understand exactly the data points, so that way you as a business owner can make better quality decisions and therefore have a better quality business and make the revenue, income, and the impact that you are looking for, okay? Now, the next topic that we're gonna dive into is how to actually use business intelligence. And so, lucky for you, we've actually spent the last 5 years in businesses tweaking and perfecting the business intelligence system and process. So it's literally plug and play for you to track all of the important numbers in your business. And so, without further ado, introducing the business intelligence sheet. Now we're going to dive into that a little more here in a second, so that way you can understand exactly what are all of the pieces that make up the business intelligence sheet and actually how to utilize it properly, okay? So let's go ahead and kind of dive into it so you can understand a little bit more about how it actually works. So the very first thing you need to know is that right underneath this training, down in the resources section below, is the business intelligence sheet template. What you want to go ahead and do is you want to go ahead and make a copy of that sheet. You will not be able to edit that sheet because that is the template. You will need to go to File, and then you will need to go to Make a Copy, and then you will need to go ahead and put that inside of your Operations folder and then inside of your Business Intelligence folder. If you do not have a Business Intelligence folder, then you can go ahead and make one, but that is exactly where your Business Intelligence sheet should live. Now, once you go ahead and actually make a copy of that, you will see that the very first part right here is a blank template. Okay, so what you're going to basically be doing every single month is that you're going to click on this little arrow. You're going to go over to duplicate, and then you're going to go ahead and make a copy of that. And so let's say, for example, I'm doing this for February 2021, okay? And then I'm going to go over here and put February 2021. And then I'm going to go ahead and double click on the very first one, and I'm going to go ahead and make that into February 2021. And then I'm just going to drag this little blue square all the way down. Now you can see here that in February 2021, there's only 28 days. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and select these 3 columns. How I did that was I clicked on the number 31, I held down the Shift button, and then I clicked on the number 33, and it goes ahead and selects each of those 3. I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to go ahead and delete rows. Boom, just like that, I've now gone ahead and set up the business intelligence sheet for the month of February. So every single month, all you're going to do is you're going to go over to the template, and then you're going to click on the little arrow, and you're going to click on duplicate, and you're going to go ahead and do the same thing, right? So if I do that for March 2021, March, I put March 2021 here, double click on this, go over to March here, I'm going to go ahead and drag the square down. Boom, just like that, that's 31 days right there, okay? And so that is the first part of how is it that you're gonna actually go ahead and download it, and where is it that you're gonna save it, and then just making sure that every month you're duplicating the template and changing the dates, because every single tab inside of this sheet is going to represent 1 month of data for your business, okay? So that's the very first thing that we wanted to go over. Next, what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna actually go through a column by column breakdown of everything that is inside of the business intelligence sheet, so that way you can understand exactly what it is that needs to be filled out every single day. Now, before I do that though, I wanna go ahead and put a warning, overwhelm warning. Do not get overwhelmed. This is you leveling up as a business owner, okay? You want it to be a business professional. You want to make 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000 a month. These are the skills that you need. In the same way that if there's somebody who wants to have 6-pack abs, or somebody who wants to become a police officer, or somebody who wants to become an engineer or a doctor, every profession has skills that they need to learn. This is a part of those skills of being a business professional, of being a business owner. And so even if you are not a quote unquote math person, honestly, this is just basic addition and subtraction. Do not get overwhelmed. Take a deep breath and just evolve. You're going to evolve as a business owner, and just like everything else in life, you attain mastery through repetition. The same way that the first time you learn how to drive a car, the same way you learn how to ride a bicycle, the same way that you learn how to swim. Through repetition, you will attain mastery. And so I want you to stick with me and take it step by step by step, day by day by day, and just starting out small. And then over time, you will develop the skill set of how to actually be a proper business professional utilizing business intelligence and data, okay? And so that is the warning. And now we're going to go ahead and dive into what each of these columns are and what it is that you're going to fill in, okay? So a couple of different things on here. The very first column is, the first section is organic lead gen. Inside of organic lead gen right now, we have 4 columns. This is the number of Facebook friends that you have every single day. You're going to check that. This one is the number of Facebook group members that you have if you are doing a Facebook group. If you do not have a Facebook group, then you would go ahead and leave that blank. This is the number of Instagram followers that you have if you are utilizing Instagram as your lead gen source. And then this is the number of strategy sessions that you scheduled on that day, and that day is 3/1/21 in this case, which is an example. Now, what is a strategy session? A strategy session is a sales call, like a 45 minutes to 60-minute sales call. There's different names that you can call them. We typically just call them strategy sessions in the business intelligence sheet, okay? Now, this is how many strategy sessions you scheduled that day. Does not mean how many strategy sessions were on the calendar. It just means from your lead gen efforts, how many strategy sessions total got scheduled. Those strategy sessions might take place the next day, 2 days in the future, 4 days in the future. It does not matter how many strategy sessions did you get scheduled on 3/1/21, and you can find that information inside of your calendar, whether that be Calendly or anything else, okay? The next section right here is lead nurture. Lead nurture is basically tracking how many calls did you have scheduled that day. So these are how many calls were on your actual calendar. So if you go over to your Google Calendar or your Calendly or whatever, how many calls for that day, which is 3/1/21 in this example, were scheduled on that day, scheduled as in where they were on the calendar to occur on 3/1/21. Now, out of those, let's say you had 4 calls that were scheduled on 3/1/21 that were supposed to take place on that Monday. Out of those 4 calls, how many actually showed up, right? So let's say, for example, we had 4 calls scheduled and 2 showed up. This is how it automatically calculates in this black column right here. It automatically calculates your show up rate. That's what SUR stands for, is your show up rate. And so that way we can go ahead and see if you are having difficulties from a lead nurture standpoint in terms of people showing up. Like let's say, for example, you had 4 calls scheduled and only 1 call showed. Well, that's one data point, right? Let's say, for example, you had 4, 4, 4, 5, 3, 2 right here, right? I put this down here. I'm going to put 6 here. And let's say, for example, you got 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. You can see here for the month at the bottom, you had 36 calls scheduled and only 11 showed, and your show up rate is 31% total, right? So the bottom part here is the totals. And right here, you can see that there's a 31% call show up rate. Now, what that tells us is that there's some sort of issue because you should at least be at a 50% show up rate depending on the type of funnel you're running. And so that way you and your coach will be able to actually pinpoint where the problems are inside of your business based on that information, okay? Now, out of those calls that showed, over here is a sales section. The sales section is going to be where you're going to represent, out of that call that showed, how many actually sales did you get? So let's say, for example, I got 0, I got 1, I got 1 here, I got 2, I got 0 there. Now, obviously, your sales number cannot be bigger than your call show up number. So right here, this is, let's say if it's 3, that would be an issue because then your closing percentage, right here, which is automatically calculated, which is the percentage of calls that you had that closed into a customer. So over here, let's say I had 3 calls and I closed 2 people into a customer. Therefore, my closing percentage is 67%, right? If I go 1, I'm going to go 1 here, I'm going to go 0 here, I'm going to go 1 here. So that way at the end of the month or even day to day, you can really see at the bottom, okay, I had 13 calls show. Out of those 13 calls, I had 7 sales, and therefore my upfront closing percentage is 54%. And so that way you can actually have benchmarks and KPIs and see, okay, do I need to work on my sales? Do I need to work on my show up rate? Do I need to work on my call scheduled? And that way it's literally a pipeline and you can see what's happening in your business. And that is the power of business intelligence, okay? The next column over here, and again, all of the yellow ones right here are the ones you're going to be filling in. The black ones are automatically populated, okay? So upfront cash. Obviously, upfront cash, if you had 0 sales, would be 0. If you had 1 sale, then your upfront cash, whatever your upfront cash means, whatever you collected that day from that 1 sale, okay? And so let's say you collected, $300. Now, what you would also go ahead and do is if you collected $300, you would go ahead and also put the contract value for that person. So let's say this was a front-end offer, and that person's front-end offer was $300. Therefore, the contract value and the upfront cash tells me that you collected all of the contract value upfront. If it's contract value, let's say $1,500, that means that they've only paid $300 out of the $1,500 that they owe you, okay? And so that is upfront cash. Over here is delayed sales number and delayed amount number. So what you're going to put over here is basically, let's say, for example, that person who did not close here, they told you, hey, I'm going to let you know later. Let's say they come to you on Tuesday and they tell you, hey, I want to join the program. Even though they were a 0 sale here, you would go ahead and put them as a 1 sale here because they joined on Tuesday. And then they actually paid you, let's say, $300 right there. Boom, just like that, you can actually go ahead and allocate what were the delayed sales. And so that's why you have your upfront closing percentage, which is how many people did you close on the first interaction, right? And then your delayed, which is how many people came through your sales process delayed later on, as in like they joined later on the program, okay? And then split payments right here. Let's say, for example, this person, they had paid me $300 upfront, and then they told me, you know what, this other amount I'm going to pay you later on. And so the split payment, let's say, came through on the next Monday, right? And so therefore, let's say they paid me an additional, let's say $500. I would go ahead and put the split payment there. And so whenever you're collecting split payments, right, out of the accounts receivable, that goes over here under split payments. And then this average upfront cash is automatically calculated based on the sales as well as the upfront cash and the division between the two. Awesome. That goes ahead and talks to you guys about this right here. Next, EFT revenue. So this is what is the revenue that you collected on that day, right? 3/1/21 from EFT, right? And you can check your payment processor for that. EFT is basically your recurring memberships that you have running. Let's say you collected 400. If you're running any in-person training, this is where that would go ahead and allocate how much did you collect from in-person training on that day. Let's say I collected 0. Other revenue or cash, this might be like sales of supplements, it might be sales of t-shirts, whatever that might be, you would go ahead and allocate that over here. If you had any backouts, let's say somebody who had said, you know what, I want to join, they paid you money, but then later on they backed out, that would be represented here. The number means you go ahead and put, let's say, number 1. You had 1 backout, and that backout was a refund of, let's say, $300. Boom, just like that, okay? Now, total cash, this is automatically calculated. And then down here, you can see, if I double click on this formula, it's going ahead and adding my upfront cash, my delayed cash, my split cash, my EFT revenue, my in-person revenue, and my other cash, and then it's subtracting my backouts. So that way I can see how much is the total cash that I actually collected on that specific month as a whole, okay? That right there is the columns for revenue. The next columns that we have on here are the columns for expenses. And so this is going to be where you go ahead and fill in and you look at your bank statement every single day. And I'm going to talk to you guys about why we do that every single day here in a second. But every single day, you're going to look at your bank statement and you're going to say, okay, you know what? On 3/1, I paid $20 for utilities. I'm going to go ahead and put that. I'm going to put a note in here. This was for internet bill. Boom. And then I'm going to go ahead and put, you know what, on office supplies on Monday, I bought, you know, my $97 for my ClickFunnels software came out. So I'm going to put that on here, ClickFunnels. Boom. And you can see here that all of those are auto-populated at the bottom as well. And then at the end, right here, it has the total expenses. What it's doing is it's basically just adding all of the expense column. And then it has your gross profit, which is taking your paid cash, and it's taking your expenses and you're subtracting the two, so you have your gross profit, and then you have your gross margin, which is the gross margin that you have that is between your gross profit and your expenses, okay? And so that is column by column exactly what it is inside of the sheet, so that way you guys know exactly what every single column represents. Now, a couple of different things that I want to mention here. Some of you guys might be asking, why do we write down every single expense that we have when our accounting software or our transactions like in our bank statement, actually take care of it? Isn't that redundant? So I had a mentor of mine who was talking to us about a billionaire that he had talked to in terms of a lesson that he had learned. And so what this billionaire would do is that his basic business was that he would go into failing companies and he would basically turn them around and make them profitable. And the very first thing that this billionaire would do when he would get into a failing organization or a failing company is that he would basically stop all of the transactions and everything had to be approved by him by writing and say, okay, I approve this transaction. Okay, so he was inside of a company once, and then the secretary came to him and said, hey, I need you to be able to approve this $250,000 check that we're going to need to pay out. He's like, you guys are a failing organization. You guys are a failing company. Why in the world are you guys sending out $250,000? Where is this going? And the secretary said, oh, what we do is we sponsor the giraffe at the local zoo to wear our logo 3 times a week, and we pay the zoo $250,000 a month for that. And he was like, what in the world? And so after that, what he basically came up with the term is that whenever he goes into a business, he cuts out the giraffes. And that is the point what we're doing here when we're actually tracking our expenses every single day. By you writing them down, by you actually going into your bank account and looking at your expenses and being forced to write them down, that is going to force you to cut out the giraffes. Because in business, what ends up happening is that the giraffes end up building, and then you end up with some crazy expenses that you have no idea where they're even going. And so that I give you the story there so that way it sticks in your head in terms of what the billionaire gave us the example of and kind of how we utilize that inside of the business intelligence sheet. And that is why we write our expenses by hand every single day, so you feel the pain of actually having to write them down. And so that way you can actually be very careful on what your expenses are, okay? That is the expenses section. The next thing I want to go ahead and mention is that there are various different hidden columns inside of the sheet represented by these arrows. Now, do not click on the arrows in your sheet. I'm just going to show you what they are, but do not click on the ones that are in your sheet. The reason why these hidden columns are here is because this same sheet is going to be utilized by you when you get to advanced trainings in the future. Okay, so there's things like, paid traffic, when you start running paid advertising, whenever you start running 2-call closes, all of that is inside of the sheet as well. And so there are some hidden columns that I want you to ignore as you are going through this training right now. And then in future trainings, as you get more advanced, you will be able to unhide them. But for right now, make sure that you keep those hidden, and that way you can keep it all organized and keep it going from there, okay? The sheet has a number of hidden columns that will be accessed as you evolve in your business. We've already talked about that. Awesome. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the next thing, which is business intelligence, troubleshooting, and tips. So we're going to go ahead and go over 6 different things that I think are important for you guys to know as you guys learn how to be able to utilize the business intelligence sheet properly, okay? The very first thing I want you guys to know is that adding notes to cells. So you might have seen it as I did it earlier, is that whenever you put an expense over here, you can just right click on a cell. So let's say I go ahead and put a $190 expense right here. You can right click on that cell. If I zoom in and show you guys, let's go 125. If I zoom in and I go ahead and click insert note, it's a very good practice to go ahead and put what that expense was for. So let's say, for example, that I had, in this expense, this was, let's say, for example, Google software or something, right? Just as an example. Let's say, for example, I had multiple expenses that came out on 3/15. All I would do is I would hit the equal sign. I would put, let's say I had a $5 expense plus a $10 expense plus a $15 expense. $30 was spent that day, and I can see from the equation here 5, 10, 15. So there's 3 transactions. I right click, insert note, and I can put that was Calendly, that was Twilio, and let's say that was also Google Domains, right? Three notes for 3 expenses inside of that day. And the other thing that I would highly recommend you guys do is if you guys ever have split payments, you can just go ahead and right click and insert note. This was from Michelle. This delayed payment was from Nate, right? Just as an example here. And so that way you can always remember, where was that delayed payment from? Put your mouse over it. Boom. This was from Michelle. This was from Nate. It's very easy for you guys to do. Those are some advanced tips that I wanted to give you guys. Next, contract value versus delayed payments. Do not put contract value until the delayed payment comes through. Let me give you as an example over here. This person did not close, right? Let's say this was right here, this 0 sale was this call show. Let's say this was Michelle. Okay, Michelle says, hey, don't worry, Yasin, I'm going to pay you $500, or actually I'm going to pay you $300 tomorrow. Don't worry. You do not want to put contract value on Monday. You want to leave this blank. Because what you're going to do is you're going to put the value over here when that comes in over here. So you don't want to have duplicates inside of there. So only put the contract value once it comes through. So over here, I had a $1,500 already. I'm going to add the other $1,500 that she pays me, for example. So now I have a $3,000 contract value, which is 2 sales. I got this sale right here, and I got this sale right here, both of which were worth $1,500 each. Therefore, I put the contract value on the day that I transact the money. If that does not make any sense to you, ask your coach. They'll be able to explain it further, but I want to kind of just give you guys the overview for those of you who understand what it is that I'm saying. Next, schedules versus shows, reschedules and cancels. Inside of the schedule column, we put only everyone that's scheduled and did not say that they needed to reschedule. What does that mean? Right here in this column where it says call scheduled and call showed. Let's say, for example, that on my calendar, I had 4 calls scheduled. But out of those 4 calls, 2 people told me that they wanted to reschedule. Therefore, I would not put 4 on right here inside of this section. I would go ahead and put 2. And then I would say that out of those 2 who said that they were going to show up, only 1 actually showed up. Why do we actually not include reschedules inside of the system here? The reason we do not include reschedules is because they're still in the system. They've agreed to go ahead and get rescheduled. They haven't become a dead lead. And so for that reason, we actually go ahead and don't include them in here so we don't botch our data, okay? And so reschedules column is everyone that is scheduled and did not say that they needed to reschedule or cancel because they are not dead, they are still in the system. And so we only ever really include those people who are on the schedule and those who did not say that they wanted to reschedule on their inside of that column. Next, the other thing I want to mention is that you want to make sure that you check formulas regularly. It's very easy to make mistakes on formulas. So if I scroll down here, you can see here that you want to check, is this formula making sense on here? Is the call scheduled actually the sum? Like here's a perfect example of this. This right here is a perfect example because the sum is including from W3 to W32. However, this entire sheet goes down to W33 because that's the 31st of the month. And so if I was only utilizing this, I need to make sure that this is actually 33. So that way it includes the sum entirely right there. And that is very common to happen, it can happen all the time. And so my big recommendation is that you just double click on cells and you can see what the formulas look like. In this case, it looks like because I duplicated the February, if you remember we duplicated the February, all of the formulas now are kind of messed up. And that's why I would highly recommend that you stick to duplicating the template rather than messing up the formula. So all of these formulas are now kind of messed up. So I'll have to go in and actually fix them. Actually, these are good now. These are good. This is good. This is good. 33, 33. Awesome. So these are not terrible. These were the only ones that were messed up in here. And that is exactly why I'm happy that it happened during the training. So that way you can see that it's very important to check formulas regularly. It's very easy to have mistakes in formula. We find them all the time. Especially watch out for some cells, the sum, S-U-M, depending on the days of the month. Example, total cash on there. Tracking other metrics. Now, the other thing I want to mention is that if you want to track other metrics like foot traffic and referrals, you can actually add columns on here as well. So let's say, for example, I wanted to track, other than my IG followers, I wanted to track how many in-person visits I got, right? Or foot traffic. Let's say how many I want to track foot traffic. You can go ahead and add a column by clicking. You go ahead and click insert right column, insert one to the right, and then you can track that way as well. You can go ahead and track other data points as well. Now, my big recommendation is that if you do end up doing that, make sure you actually track the formulas. You don't want to end up screwing up any formulas if you actually go in and add any columns, but that way you actually do know how to now track other metrics as well, and make sure you check the formulas if you do add any other columns, okay? The last thing I want to mention about the troubleshooting and tips is that at the bottom right here, let me zoom out a little bit. At the bottom is the goals section. So what you can do every single month is that you can say, upfront cash, I want to set a goal for $5,000 in upfront cash, and I'm going to go ahead and make this black so that way it shows up. There we go. I can go ahead and set a goal at the bottom here in row number 36. Upfront cash there. Let's say my total paid cash I want to have is $10,000. I can set a goal, set the formula, number, currency, boom, $10,000. Let's say, for example, I want to set a goal for gross profit. Make this yellow. Awesome. I want to set a goal. I want to make $15,000 this month. 15,000. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and change the formula to currency. Boom, 15,000. And so that way, as you are going through the month, you can check how you're doing compared to the auto-populated on here as well. So I just wanted to mention that we went ahead and added that goals row for you, so that way you can understand how that works as well, okay? A couple other things as we go along here. I know this training is a little bit longer, but the reason I'm having you do this is because it's very important for you to actually understand everything that is involved with the business intelligence, and we're just making this a one long training so that way you understand the foundations and you can go out there and absolutely crush it. So let's now talk about business intelligence as a daily habit. Data is only as good as how consistently it is collected. And so what you want to make sure that you do is you want to make sure that you're actually filling in your daily, your business intelligence sheet every single day. Do not wait till the end of the week to do it, because you're going to forget exactly what happened. You're going to look at your calendar. You're going to be like, was that a reschedule? Was that the person did they actually show up? You're not going to remember. You want to make sure that you fill it in every single day. And then on top of that, as you're getting this data, let's say I had 0 cash collected. You can go ahead and put in zeros for everything, so that way by the end of the month, you can just have a bunch of white. And that's the goal, is you just want to have as much white as possible. So do not be afraid of putting in zeros if you do not have anything show up. That's perfectly fine. I mean, obviously that might be an issue for your business, but in terms of the business intelligence sheet, putting in zeros is a good thing to do, so that way you can see where you had data and versus where you did not have data, okay? This will also be a part of your daily implementation process. And so your coach is going to help set you up for the coaching for business intelligence as well. So that way we can actually hold you accountable for that as well. The last thing we're going to touch base on here is business intelligence evolution. I want you to know that your business intelligence sheet is not static. It will evolve according to the different levels of business and the needs of your organization, okay? And so we will help you through that process as much as possible. Like I said, there are many hidden columns inside of the sheet that will be unlocked for you as your coach guides you through the different levels of business. Example, when you start running paid traffic, the paid traffic training is going to talk to you more about how to update your business intelligence training to be able to keep track of all of your paid traffic numbers as well. But I want you to always remember, our goal is to help you to teach you how to fish as a business owner. So even though we help you, at the end of the day, it is your business and it's up to you to keep the sheet up to date and consistently fill it in, so that way you can have a better quality of life and business by making better decisions with better data, okay? And so this has been the business intelligence training. Go out there, make a copy of it, go through this training multiple times if you need to, so that way you can start utilizing the business intelligence sheet every single day, and that way you can have better quality data based on better quality decisions, and then go out there and have a better business as a whole as well, because that way you'll actually know what are the bottlenecks in my business, not based on what I think, not based on my feelings, not based on what the moon star says, based on actual data. So that way there's certain days where you're like, dang, I feel like today's I'm just off. Like, man, my business is going off. And then you look at your sheet and you're like, oh, dang, I'm closing at 50%. I've already collected, $5,000 in revenue or $5,000 in upfront cash. I'm actually doing pretty good, because we as humans, our emotions go up and down, but data stays constant. And so that's why we regulate our emotions with data. I will catch you guys on the next training.